Week 15 of the NBA season means, of course, the playoffs are actually creeping up on us, Chris Meaney. Garion, Thorne, only 7 weeks away in standard formats for the fantasy NBA playoffs to begin. So this is starting to mean something, Chris. And
absolutely. Crunch time.
Crunch time. We have 22 different teams with 4 games in Week 15, so a lot of players to choose from. We're going to start with a guy who, I mean, not exactly a big name in terms of fantasy basketball. Wasn't someone you were looking at drafting by any means so far this season. But with Kemba Walker sidelined, Brian Roberts, now the starting point guard in Charlotte, hasn't exactly set the world on fire in his 2 starts with Kemba on the sideline. 12.5 points, 4.5 assists. But he's not been too bad in his career. He's kind of proven he can be a scorer.
Yeah, and you know what's really encouraging about Brian Roberts? You know, the field goal percentage wasn't good, 3 for 11 in his last game, but he took 11 shots.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging that he's taking some shots, he's getting some playing time. Really nice DFS value play too, if you're into that kind of stuff. And DraftKings and FanDuel, he's really cheap. And the minutes they've been there, right? So the last 2 games, 25 points, 9 assists in 70 minutes. So you got to, when you're looking on the waiver wire for guys who are going to play, and he's going to play.
And again, they're looking for offense in Charlotte too. That's the one sort of, not problem necessarily with Roberts, because it's not a problem specific to him, but a lot of the times when you look for these backup point guards, it's great to find a point guard who's in a high tempo, high offensive rating style offense. And I mean, the Charlotte Hornets have the 3rd worst offensive rating in the entirety of the NBA, so they're looking for someone to score because Kemba was their #1 scoring option on the court. Roberts does have a 3-pointer in 5 straight games and is shooting 37% for his career from beyond the arc, so that might be something he can do well. And as I mentioned, a 14.6 points per 36 for his career, so he has proven that he's a score-first point guard. So if you are looking in that sense, you could do worse than Brian Roberts. Another guy who's been getting a lot of minutes due to injury on another sort of middling team in the Eastern Conference, John Henson is now getting the start because Zaza Pachulia has a calf injury, could be out for as long as a week, but also Ersan Ilyasova, again, dealing with groin issues, sat out 1 game on Thursday last week against Orlando, didn't play. Still missing Jabari Parker, he'll be out for the rest of the season. Larry Sanders still suspended by the NBA. We don't know when he'll be back. So Henson, I mean, not only does he have a lot of potential, the former first-round pick, but he might be the only person above 6'8" currently playing for the Milwaukee Bucks.
It's amazing, the Bucks, they've had a lot of everyone's been hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly everybody in that lineup has been hurt this year. You know, over the past 14 days, 8.5 points, 6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks for Henson, and over the past 7 days, 10.7 rebounds, and again, 1.3 blocks. So he's been pretty consistent over the past 14 days. Whether you're playing Yahoo or ESPN leagues, he's going to contribute. He's going to get the minutes. You know, in that 1 start, he had 12 points and 11 rebounds. He's double-digit points in 3 of his last 4 games as well, and a block in 11 straight games, 20 blocks over that period. So anytime you can get a big who can get you some blocks here and there, you got to get that off the waiver wire.
Yeah, Milwaukee, a team built on length, and Henson obviously doesn't come up short at all in that category. Another guy from North Carolina, a lot like Ed Davis, who just maybe not the tallest guy in the world, but very athletic, very long. So does have the capability for blocks there, and also someone who's figuring out how to play his position. His field goal percentage has gone up 5% in every single season, this being his 3rd season now, shooting a career best 58% from the field this year, and a lot of that has to do with the fact 63.6% of his shots this season coming at the rim within 3 feet. That had only been 44% last season. You don't want your big men stretching the floor. I mean, sometimes just get in the paint and dunk the ball. That is the highest percentage you can get.
Absolutely, and what I do like about him is that he chips in here and there. I talked about the blocks. He's not going to get you a lot of assists and a lot of steals, but it's 3 straight games where he's had at least 1 steal and 1 block and 1 assist. So again, you're not going to get looking for those categories. If you're in need of some rebounds and some blocks, then Henson is a guy that you should be able to pick up. But it's nice to see that he's chipping here and there.
And unlike Charlotte, Milwaukee has been able to stay very competitive. So I mean, a credit to Jason Kidd there. So Henson's not the kind of guy who might get in a situation where he's not going to have to play a ton of minutes because those games won't be competitive. They are meaningful. Milwaukee in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff push right now. Greivis Vasquez, someone else we wanted to touch on because has been starting in place of Terrence Ross, who was benched by coach Dwayne Casey 6 games ago technically, but that 7th game against the Pelicans, Ross did start the game. Vasquez came in at halftime, started the second half. So basically 6.5 games for Vasquez within the starting lineup of the Raptors. He's averaged 11.3 points, 5.1 assists, and 3.1 rebounds. And this is the exact opposite situation that I was talking about with Brian Roberts, where he had the 3rd worst offensive rating with the Hornets. Toronto, throughout the entirety of the season, has been top 5 in the NBA in terms of offensive ratings. So there's a lot of opportunity for Vasquez to thrive in terms of both points and assists. And something we talked about a little bit earlier, Kyle Lowry I mean, they're really having a focus to get the ball out of his hands, because you could tell he was tired after basically carrying that team for 21 straight games, a month and a half without their all-star DeMar DeRozan. So Vasquez is actually playing lead point guard minutes right now in that lineup, and because he's playing, well, he's starting at shooting guard and then also still being the backup point guard, he's playing 31, 32, 33 minutes a night. Of those 7 games, has played more than 28 minutes in 5 of them. So I think Vasquez, who actually hasn't been having that great a season in terms of the context of his career, I think right now he's filling up the stat sheet in many different categories: steals, threes. As I mentioned, the assists and rebounds there are secondary categories. So I think you're going to have to get him in there as long as he's in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He might not be a good long-term play, but right now he's a perfect play, because eventually you probably think that Ross gets his starting shooting guard position back with the Toronto Raptors. But, you know, he's double-digit points in 5 of his last 7 games, 17 assists over his last 3, and he can hit a 3. He's got 6 threes over his last 3 games as well. You know, over the last 7 days, he's one of the top-ranked point guards in Yahoo Sports. So 12 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.3 3-points made. Say that 5 times fast. And you got Grievous Vasquez, who's chipping in there.
And not shy either. No. Not shy at all. He will take his shots, so don't worry about that too much. We'll take his opportunities. A former Raptor to close this thing out, Chris Humphries, who not necessarily is going to be taking over for Nene in a long-term sense. It's kind of hard to get a grip on exactly when Nene isn't going to be playing for the Washington Wizards. Randy Whitman has come out and said that Nene will continue to get nights off, usually on the second night of back-to-backs. Throughout the rest of the season, we're dealing with a guy who's a veteran in the league and is someone who has dealt with his fair share of injuries. So Humphries, it's kind of hard to get a sense of when he's necessarily going to play, but when he does play, he definitely makes the most of it.
He's been surprisingly really good. Checking out his box score over the past few games, you know, 11 points, 11 rebounds over the last 7 games, shooting 53% from the field, 9 points, 9 rebounds over his last 14 days, and shooting 54% from the field, 2 double-doubles in his last 3 games, 21 and 14, which was obviously a phenomenal game. That's probably not going to happen too much with Humphries, but he also had an 11-15 game, which he did start. You're looking at his starts, he started 15 times this year for Washington, and he's averaging 8 points and 8 rebounds. So that's not bad. When he gets the starts, he's producing. And, you know, Nene is bothered by a foot injury. It's possible that he does miss some time, so not a bad play. And again, we're talking DFS too. If he's very cheap,
incredibly cheap. Yeah. And he's someone who, again, even if you don't know what you're going to get necessarily from the offensive specific end of the spectrum, has always been a very good rebounder. You mentioned how good he's been recently. 40 rebounds over his last 3 games, so 13.3 rebounds a night is nothing to scoff at. And a 24.9% defensive rebounding rate that is 17th best in the NBA. So again, not exactly elite when it comes to anything, but a very, very good rebounder and a very solid bet to at least fill out that end of the stat sheet. Chris Meaney, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Garion Thorne. Good luck Week 15 on the NBA Hardcourt.